Well, let's call the meeting to order. Joanne, will you call the roll?
Yes, Jeff Whitty,
I'm here.
Ralph Hill,
I see Ralph, but he's on mute. There he is.
Sorry about that. I was having some audio difficulties here.
All right.
and Mark Sanchez.
Here.
All right. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Does any of the committee wish to?
I move.
Been moved by Ralph,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Sanchez. Mark, no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, motion passes. Joanne, if you'll reflect that the 3 committee members voted in the affirmative. I think we're still supposed to call roll on these things, so
Jeff Whitty,
yes.
Ralph Hill,
Yes.
Mark Sanchez.
Yes.
All right. So we're still complying with the meetings that we do by Zoom. The next item on the agenda is the introduction of committee members. I'm Jeff Whitty. I serve as Secretary of Agriculture for those who might be on today that are new. Ralph, you want to go next?
Morning, everyone. I'm Ralph Vigil. I'm Chairman of the New Mexico Acequia Commission.
And Mark Sanchez.
Mark Sanchez, Chairman of the Interstate Stream Commission.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the previous minutes 4/4/23.
I move.
Move we approve.
Been moved
Second.
and seconded to approve the minutes. Joanne, you want to call the roll?
Jeff Whitty,
Yes.
Ralph Hill,
Yes.
Mark Sanchez.
Yes.
All right. Next item on the agenda is the open meetings resolution. So Joanne, can you pull that up as well?
I move approval.
There's been a motion to approve the open meetings resolution
I'll second.
and seconded by Ralph. Any discussion? Hearing none. Joanne, can you call the roll?
Jeff Whitty,
Yes.
Ralph Hill,
Yes.
Mark Sanchez.
Yes.
All right. Next item on the agenda is to discuss the relinquishment of $44,609 for from Cow Creek due to non-activity. We had some correspondence from David Benavides about that, and so if David is on, I would like to ask David to provide some comments and some new insights as to the activity of Cow Creek.
I'm here, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So yeah, it's very simple. This probably could have all been avoided coming on the agenda. For the last month and a half, this adjudication has been, I can't imagine how an adjudication could be more active. Present with me today is the president of the board of the Cow Creek Basin Acequia Association, Luciana Garcia. I'm not sure she would need to make any comments unless some questions were addressed to her. But also present is Paul Bossert. He's an attorney with the State Engineer Office. He's the lead attorney. One of those, I guess, Paul himself as to whether he's the lead on the Cow Creek Basin adjudication. And the reason this shouldn't have gotten this far is that we have been meaning to reactivate the grant, and we kind of got we just were slow at doing it, and now the adjudication is up and running in full. Adjudication packets are being mailed out to every individual water owner right now as we speak. My phone's ringing off the hook, and my email boxes has several emails with regard to this. Every day we're having meetings every week, and so we have just begun to take the steps to reactivate the grant because we got just caught a little bit by surprise. We thought we would have a little bit more time before the packets started getting mailed out to the acequias in the basin to to do the things that we've just now started doing, which is to, submit the final invoice from the pre-2019 period. And basically what happened, and the committee members are aware that this sometimes happens with adjudications, is that a hydrographic survey is done and public meetings are held by the state engineer, and it looks to everybody like everything is going to get launched. That's what happened prior to 2019, is the hydrographic survey is done in 2015, and whoops, we're getting some feedback. Sorry, thank you. The hydrographic survey was done in 2015, and state engineers started having public meetings. The Cow Creek Basin Organization organized itself in 2016. And the state engineer stated, and the court stated, that this thing would launch with what's happening now. The problem is that in 2018, it came to a screeching halt. And maybe Paul can explain why, Mr. Bossert, with the state engineer office, but I believe it had to do with the state engineer not having the staff to be able to move this thing forward. And I think the court resisted a little bit and then agreed. And so, yes, it has been inactive since 2018, but all of a sudden in 2023, it is now in high gear. And I can answer more questions, more detailed questions, I guess, if you want more detailed questions about what's going on, but I thought I'd let Mr. Bossert have the floor for a moment. And if I think of anything else after he speaks, I'll certainly add it, but otherwise I'll stand for questions.
Okay, Mr. Bossert.
Oh, and just to add, the thing that was maybe a little, the reason for the email was because the report that the state engineer does, that was done by Gary Storm a few days ago, didn't say anything one way or the other about Cow Creek. And then we realized, looking at the report, that they were only looking at what's going on with those who are applying for money this year. And Cow Creek is not applying for money this year, and so Cow Creek didn't make the list. And it should have made the list. And I guess, in my opinion, it should be at the high level activity, but I'll let Paul speak to that as well. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you, and I'll stand for questions.
Okay, thank you, David.
Paul, are you there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Paul Bossert. I'm an attorney with the Office of the State Engineer, and as Mr. Benavides said, I guess I'm the lead attorney on the Cow Creek adjudication currently. It's true that there was no activity for some number of years after the hydrographic survey, and for reasons that are somewhat obscure and that I could speculate on. But a year and a half ago, the court asked the state engineer, can we do this? And the state engineer started working with the judge on getting it moving again. And so as of this spring, we had we agreed on a revised procedure with the court, and we got that in, and we've, as Mr. Benavides said, we've been contacting claimants roughly as quickly as we're able. It's been fairly intense, and my phone is doing the same thing as Mr. Benavides. In a nutshell, it's high activity now, and I can, talk about what happened before if you all care to hear about it. I'll stand for questions too.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee or comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
One last thing I'll add is the number in the agenda item is 44,609. We're just in the process of submitting a final invoice for activity prior to 2019 that comes out, that brings that balance down to 39,000 some. So 39,000 some is what we have available to work with for the next year.
Okay. All right. Well, as everybody knows, we try to keep these grants current and don't let the old money sit very long and try to roll that in and replace it. The item, talking to my team, the item came on the agenda because we had not seen any activity or had any communication. And I'd asked them to reach out to you so that that you could come to the meeting today to give us an update on what's going on. Sounds like things are starting to move and move at a fast pace. So any other discussion for the committee, from the committee members? If there's none, I would recommend that we just take no action on this, on item 6. Do the rest of the committee agree?
I agree.
Great.
I agree.
All right. Item number 7, review the Office of the State Engineer's report. Mr. Bagley.
Actually, I'm Gary Storm.
Or Gary? Okay, Gary, go ahead.
And I'm going to be presenting the state's, or summarizing the state's report. In this session, we are addressing the requests for funding by a total of 12 applicants. The state has reviewed all the applications and concluded that 8 applicants are involved in adjudications that are engaged in a high level of activity in their respective adjudication processes. 2 are engaged in a moderate level and 2 are engaged in a low level. 4 of the applicants are parties to the Aragon Chama adjudication. The Associación de Acequias de Norteñas de Rio Arriba, Rio Chama Acequia Association Incorporated, the Associación de las Acequias de Rio Valletos, Tuzas y Ojo Caliente, and El Rito Ditch Association, and please forgive my mispronunciations. These parties are in active discussions regarding the settlement of the water right claims of Acequia Community, Santa Clara Pueblo, and non-Indian parties. These discussions require participation and advice by attorneys and technical experts. Progress made on reaching proposed agreements and negotiating the language of final orders supports the request for additional funds by the 2 parties who have been funded in the past. The request for new funding by the third Aragon Chama party is also supported for the same reasons. One applicant is a party to the Kerr-McGee San Jose adjudication. That's the Association of Community Ditches of Rio San Jose. This party has been in active discussions regarding the settlement of the water right claims of the pueblos of Acoma and Laguna. These discussions require participation and advice by attorneys and technical experts. The progress made in ongoing negotiations supports the request for additional funds by the Association of Community Ditches of Rio San Jose. 2 of the applicants are parties to the Abbott Santa Cruz Truchas adjudication. Rio Quemado and Rio Frijoles and Rio and Medillo and Santa Cruz Stream Systems Community Ditch Association and the La Acequia de la Sierra. The parties are in active discussions regarding the settlement of the water right claims of Acequia Community and the Rio Chama, as well as Santa Clara Pueblo and the non-Indian parties. These discussions require the participation and advice of attorneys and technical experts. The progress made in ongoing negotiations supports the request for additional funds by Rio Quemado, Rio Frijoles, Rio and Medillo, and Santa Cruz Stream Systems Community Ditch Association, and the Acequia de la Sierra. The Jemez River Basin Coalition of Acequias. Settlement negotiations have resulted in a settlement agreement which fully resolves the water right claims of the pueblos of Jemez and Zia. It also provides for water infrastructure projects to benefit both pueblos and the coalition's member Acequias. However, significant work remains to secure congressional approval. The Jemez Coalition will require resources to cover legal, technical expert, and consultant fees in negotiating the federal and state legislative process. Regarding those of a moderate level of activity, the Fort Sumner Valley Ditch Association was a party to the expedited intercity proceeding adjudicating the water rights of Intrepid Potash. The court entered the subfile order and partial final judgment and decree adjudicating the water rights of Intrepid Potash in March 2022. The following month, Intrepid Potash appealed this subfile order. Fort Sumner was involved in litigation of that appeal and will likely participate in any oral argument which may be set possibly in 2024. Regarding the Taos Valley Acequia Association, the rights of Taos Pueblo have been settled by federal legislation in 2010. The partial final decree entered by the Federal District Court in 2016 and uniform irrigation requirements established by the court in 2016. Settlement implementation efforts continue, including the completion of several mutually beneficial projects called for by the settlement. Non-Pueblo issues still remain to be resolved in the adjudication lawsuit, though these are not expected to be addressed as soon as 2024. For those applicants whose activity is low, the Sunset Ditch Company is involved in water rights adjudication and related settlement implementation processes in the state of Arizona. The state of New Mexico is not involved in that litigation and therefore cannot provide its own estimate of the level of activity in that litigation for the fiscal year 2024. The Rio de las Gallinas Acequia Association, the application requests funds for potential litigation. The state does not anticipate engaging in this litigation during the fiscal year 2024. I would just affirm that it's the state's perception that relinquishing the funds of the Cow Creek Basin Acequia Association is preliminary, and we approve the striking of that matter from the agenda.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Hearing none. Next on the agenda is the review of the NMDA the recommendation brought forth. So Joanne, can you review those for us?
Yes. So we have Fort Sumner requested $70,000. NMAC, ISC, and NMDA recommends $10,000. La Sierra requested $75,000. NMAC, ISC, and NMDA recommend $10,000. Jemez River requested $170,000. NMAC recommends $130,000. ISC and NMDA recommend $140,000. Rio Arriba requested $190,000. NMAC recommends $120,000. ISC $145,000. NMDA $130,000. Rio de Chama requested $160,000. NMAC and NMDA recommend $160,000. ISC recommends $180,000. Community Ditches of Rio San Jose requested $145,000. NMAC, ISC, and NMDA recommend $90,000. Sunset Ditch requested $35,000. NMAC and ISC recommend $1,000. NMDA recommends $5,000. Rio Camado requested $185,000. NMAC and NMDA recommend $120,000. ISC recommends $125,000. El Rito Ditch Association requested $60,000. NMAC and NMDA recommend $20,000. ISC recommends $25,000. Taos Valley requested $195,000. NMAC and NMDA recommend 50,000. ISC recommends 10,000. Rio Vallecitos requested 120,000. NMAC, ISC, and NMDA recommend 20,000. Rio de las Cainas requested $44,255. NMAC recommends 30,000. ISC and NMDA recommend 0.
Okay, thank you, Joanne. Next, we're going to have presentation to the committee by the applicants. I've got a sign-up list, 1 through 9. If there's anyone that didn't get signed up before, after we finish with Mr. Holloman, I'll recognize anybody else who wants to speak. So number 1 is David Benavides. So David, the floor is yours for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, given that we're not given your action on our agenda item earlier and that we're not applying for funds, I'm not sure I need to take the committee's time unless there's questions or anything more you want to hear about our adjudication.
Okay, very good. Any other questions for Mr. Benavides? Thank you, David. Next is Aiden Trujillo, Rio Quemado.
Good morning, Secretary Betty. This is Adán Trujillo for Rio Quemado. Rio Quemado Acequia Association. I want to thank you for your time and that time of the committee today. The Rio Quemado Association has, of course, experienced a high level of activity in the past year, and that is participating in the Rio Quemado adjudication. There've been weekly meetings. There have been a significant number of in-person meetings as things start to ramp up. The weekly meetings have been virtual. That doesn't show any signs of slowing down this coming year. In fact, if anything, it appears that it's actually going to ramp up as Santa Clara Pueblo finalizes its claims and the parties actually begin to have, protracted substantive conversations. We anticipate that we're going to need to engage our hydrologist, quite a bit. We are looking to add a second attorney to represent the Rio Quemado with the departure of Enrique Romero, and we anticipate that this coming year will be quite busy for the Rio Quemado. So, we appreciate your consideration. We thank you for the hard work and in sifting through these applications. And I'll stand for questions. But before I yield the floor, I do want to, note that our chairperson, who is phenomenally engaged, is by the name of Don Bustos, is also on the line. And I would yield whatever time I have left to allow Mr. Bustos to address the committee as well.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Aaron. Don.
Thank you very much, Secretary and members of the committee. My name is Don Bustos. I own a small organic farm here in the beautiful Santa Cruz Valley. And I'm chairperson for the Rio Quemado, Rio Frijoles, Rio En Medio, and the Santa Cruz Stream Systems Community Ditch Association. As our attorney and local attorney, Adán Trujillo, he expressed that we are starting to get a lot more activity with the Aragon case coming to a finalization and a settlement being proposed. They're turning their focus straight to the Rio Santa Cruz. So there's going to be a lot of activity around hydrology. We might even look back into the historical documents because we're not agreeing with everything they're proposing. There's also Santa Clara Pueblo, which is getting all their settlement papers together to present to us, hopefully within, I don't want to speed it up, but it's going to be soon, and we have to be prepared for both Santa Clara and Okeowinge. Plus the city of Española also wants to be able to end those adjudications. So it's becoming a huge tanglement and a mess, and all their focus from both federal, state, and every agency is starting to focus in Santa Cruz. So we need all the support and expertise just so we can protect what we have, and so farmers and ranchers can continue to grow food for future generations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Don. Any questions from the committee for Rio Quemado?
I have a comment if I can make. I'm Rick Martinez with the Los Salazares Community Ditch and involved in the Aragon situation. But I just want to make a quick comment from irrigator and Parciente status and being in these meetings is for a Parciente to have to worry about attorney fees is a big deal, and to have to hear our legal representation that we have representing us worry about where the money's coming from. I think the state and any sources out there that can contribute to these funds need to do it, because we're up against unlimited budgets when you come against the Native American tribes, and when you come against the city governments and state governments, we're outgunned. So they need as much money as they can get to support these funds, these causes.
Thank you. Okay, next is Mr. Tafoya, Rio San Jose.
Morning. Thanks for the opportunity to once again address this committee for our sector needs concerning our settlement agreement. As you probably know, the settlement agreement is pending before Congress, which means we're still going to have a lot of work to do. We have hydrology studies are going to be quite expensive, and communication with all 9 of our sectors, possibly requiring historical data and to integrate the Acequia needs, assessment reports, and Acequia priorities. I don't know if you have our current bank account, but it may show a balance of about 30,000. However, we have not been able to submit May's invoice totals, which is over 15,000 due to hydrology work on USGS models. So any consideration you guys can give us, that would be appreciated.
All right. Any questions for Rio San Jose? All right. Next is Gainas.
Can you hear me?
There you are. Yes.
Yes, I'm here. Okay.
We can hear you, Michelle.
Yes, thank you very much again for allowing us some time to present here, and also for your assistance throughout the years. Our adjudication is indeed winding down, and our big issue that's left remaining is actually a lien against our mitigation payment from the city of Las Vegas for our former counsel, Judge Daniel Sanchez. And so actually, contrary to the Mr. Storm's report for OSE, we're not asking for finances for potential litigation. We're asking for funding to pay Judge Sanchez. And that amount is $44,254.67. We've requested some clarification and tried to reach out. Mr. Romero, our current counsel, has reached out to try to see if we could get some of that funding from the grant money that we have, and it hasn't been clarified. So that's why we're making this request now, to see if we can get those funding. Let's see. So we just want to remove his lien and move forward and be done with this adjudication process. I don't know if you have any questions for me, but we did want to ask, if it's not, if it can't be resolved right now, we would like to ask that maybe the money could be set aside until the NMDA can determine if all the invoices can be paid. I know there's been some question, but we do have correlation with them with the adjudication, or that's or if we could get some explanation of why they can't be paid. If you have some questions for me, I might be able to answer.
All right. Does the committee members have any questions?
I just want to bring back some history on this, and you know, this association really needs some help in whatever resolving this, whether they can be paid or not. I'm not the expert on that, on what invoices can be paid, but there was years that they were denied funding because of a false impression given that they couldn't qualify because they were in against another political subdivision against the state, when we found out that that did not exist in statute. And I think they were put at a real unfair disadvantage at that time.
Thank you for that, Mr. Vihil. I do have some of the correspondence that relates to that. There was a lot of back and forth confusion about the ability to pay those invoices.
Yeah, I think the issue with some of this is it goes back. These invoices are from like 5 or more years ago, correct?
That is correct.
And was that the time period where you were denied because of the because it was against the city of Las Vegas and not?
Yes. Yes, the attorneys for the city reached out to NMDA and asked that they not be paid.
Yeah, I can't remember all the timelines in all of
Yeah.
this. And then did the association apply for funds during that time frame and make us aware of these bills?
Yes. Yes, they did. And we've had contracts with Judge Sanchez throughout that period of time, throughout 2018. I don't remember exactly when it ended. And then NMAA helped us from there on.
Okay.
And then Mr. Romero has been helping us since then.
Okay. Joanne, do you have any comments? I don't want to put you on the spot. Just anything to update inform the committee on some of the issues.
Well, it does go back to 2014 and 2018. It's between that time period. So the 2014, of course, it predates me. And they do have a current grant right now with a balance of $11,000 that Mr. Enrique Romero is the lawyer for that. So we do not have current contract with Mr. Sanchez. So, to pay for Mr. Sanchez, it would, to take a new grant. We don't have anything current for them.
Okay. All right. Any other comments from the committee? Okay. Thank you, Michelle. I'm sure this will be discussed here in a little bit further. Okay. Next is El Rito, Mr. Ortiz.
Thank you and good morning. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on behalf of the El Rito Ditch Association. As was mentioned earlier by Adan and Mr. Bustos, we are currently in the latter stages of the settlement with Okeowinga and meeting weekly and having to employ lawyers and hydrologists and engineers is expensive. And we appreciate the help that the Acequia Fund has provided us. And we are currently in the position where we are going to have to be meeting with our association Parciantes to enlighten them with regards to what our final or our settlement looks like. And that's basically where we're at, other than the fact that we're very much deeply involved in trying to come to an agreement with the Okeowinga. Thank you. If you have any questions, let me know.
All right. Any questions for El Rito and Mr. Ortiz? Hearing none. Thank you, sir. Next is Antonio Manzanares for Rio Arriba. Antonio?
Good morning also. We're in the same boat as El Rito and just about everybody else. The settlement has really eaten our lunch, so much so that we are in arrears with their attorney and staff who has been working on the settlement. So I'm not going to belabor the point. We're doing all the same things that a lot of these other folks are doing. I know there was some recommendations. There were 3 different recommendations for us, and I would plead for the highest recommendation. And that's about all I got to say. Thank you.
All right. Any questions for Antonio Manzanares and Rio Arriba? All right. Thank you, Antonio. Next is James. Juanito.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, my name is John Murridge. I'm
John.
representing our chairwoman, Juanita Reback today. She unfortunately couldn't make it, had prior commitments. First, I would like to express hers and mine and the coalition's gratitude for this tremendous support you've given us, this 40-year journey. We're very close. We have a lot of work left to do. As you're all aware, we submitted our settlement agreement with the Pueblos of Jemez and Zia last fall. Unfortunately, Congress adjourned before they would take any action on it this March. Things were reinvigorated in the Senate, and we are currently awaiting the Senate, some Senate action on it, and hopefully the House as well. I think more detailed reports have been submitted on our actions, and unfortunately, the Pueblo of Santa has refused to participate in the settlement agreement. So litigation in that with that Pueblo will continue of some sort. So we're going to need more continued support, and we are so grateful for what you've done for us in the last 40 years. This thing is, we were all young people when this thing started, and we're watching it hopefully come to some conclusion in the near term. Any questions for me or the coalition?
All right, any questions for John and Jemez?
Thank you all.
Hearing none. Thank you, John. Next is La Sierra, Mr. Sandoval.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, I want to thank you guys for all the help you have given me in the future, and we want to thank the committee for past fundings. It has allowed Acequia to contract with an engineer to advise the commission about water supply questions being raised by Acequia Wingate and Santa Clara. Funding is more important than ever. After a brief lull, while Acequia Wingate was working on settlement of its Chama claim, the state of Acequia Wingate are now turning to propose settlement of Acequia Wingate's claim in the Abbott case, and also, even more important, Santa Clara Pueblo is filing its claim in Abbott. This means La Acequia must defend against two pueblos in the United States. La Acequia's hydrologist engineer has been and will continue to be active in the technical discussions and meetings. La Acequia will depend on his engineering assistance in reviewing our surface water model to make sure that the Trucha stream systems is correctly modeled, and to make sure that impact of future groundwater projects of Acequia Wingate and Santa Clara are accurate and understood. Our attorney will be required to attend many settlement meetings, while at the same time raise legal issues, will propose projects and water right claim by both Acequia Wingate and Santa Clara. La Acequia may have to contract with additional technical consultants after Santa Clara Pueblo has made a complete statement of its claim. Right now, there is a lot of uncertainty, but one thing is certain: there will be many procedures to see if settlement is possible. La Acequia appreciates any and all assistance it can get. Thank you very much for all the things you have done for us.
All right, thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Sandoval or La Sierra? Hearing none. Wade Holdeman with Fort Sumner, you're next. Is Wade on?
Hi. Had a little lag
there you
unmuting there. Sorry.
Gotcha. All right, go for it.
Yes, good morning. My name is Wade Holdeman. On behalf of the Fort Sumner Valley Ditch Association, I'd like to thank the committee for hearing our request and So we're continuing to have costs associated with the Intrepid Potash litigations. And until the court has rendered its final decision, we're hoping that our current balance of 10,000 will help cover the cost of the finalization of the litigation. But looking forward, in the last couple of years, the state has not had Fort Sumner reach of the river as a high priority for adjudication due to funding constraints and whatever reasons. But they've stated that they'll be moving forward with the adjudication work in fiscal year 2024. So we anticipate, legal counsel and engineering work with the state to expedite the adjudication. And so, we expect to work on some historic documents, recognition of water rights adjudicated by the Hope Decree, and the determination of the irrigation requirements, and also work with reclamation to obtain the approval needed for irrigator ownership of the Pecos River diversion. So those are things we're anticipating. So we would really appreciate your consideration of a little bit larger sum than what you're recommending at this time to help meet these upcoming projects. I want to thank you for your consideration.
All right, any questions for Wade in Fort Sumner? Hearing none. Is there any other association that didn't get signed up that would like to be recognized?
Yeah, this is Jerome Gonzalez. I'm with the Ojo Caliente, Vallecitos, and Tusas Water Basin, and I'd like to have an opportunity to speak.
Go for it.
Yeah, we're also, thank you. First of all, thank you to the committee for allowing me to speak on this issue. And we're involved in the Rio Chama adjudication, which is getting close to the end as far as signatures on the draft application. Still more work to do in it, which includes approval by the state legislator and also the US. And our efforts have been, actually, we've been keeping the money down on it because our attorney, Mary Humphrey, also was representing El Rito and was representing one of the tributaries on the Abbott case. But now we were going to increase, our plan was to increase our efforts. We've hired a field representative. We've got 33 Acequias that we need to talk to, and we need to push them along and have several meetings to get the commissioners to approve this settlement. So our level of effort has increased quite a bit. And the $20,000 that I hear is recommended just isn't enough. If that is all we're going to get this year, we're going to have to slow down our efforts, and which will slow down the adjudication. Right now, when our June invoices come in, our funding will be down to about $2,000. So thank you for listening to me, and I'd appreciate if you could increase that $20,000.
Which association were you with?
I'm with the Rio Vallecitos, Tusas, and Ojo Caliente.
Okay, gotcha. All right, very good. Any questions for Jerome? Vallecitos. All right. Any other acequias?
Yes, I'm Stan Jones. Stan Jones with the Sunset Canal. Normally Holly, our secretary, is in on these meetings. She's unable to do it. I see off the sheet that we look for a low priority. We are part of that settlement with Arizona. We're a little bit unique with the state in that they're back in 1935 with a Globe Equity Decree 51. The Arizona court reached into New Mexico 6 miles to the upper reaches of the valley here, and we are controlled by that Arizona court. Our water rights not, although New Mexico does our groundwater. But a few years ago, the judge recognized a digital database that was put forth by the tribes. Up until then, everything had been done off of file cards. And as stuff got merged off of those file cards into this digital database, and they were using a 1929 survey map, we found there's been gaps and through our fields, and some of this is of matching up the water rights with what's digitally and what was on those cards and what was on that 1929 map. And so there's just been an ongoing process of trying to make everything match. And they set up a technical committee, and we've always needed to have representation on that technical committee as they go through that. We are a minor part of this, and by far the majority of this concerns water rights in the state of New Mexico, but we still need representation there for the 6 mile reach the river that's in our New Mexico here, and what we're doing there. We're trying to see that we can move stuff to cover these little hot spots, these lightning strikes that go through our fields and that. And they're setting up the rules for that. They're doing some test cases out of Arizona. We're trying to continue to monitor that because that's going to impact us. We've tried not to be the lead on it, but to see how the judge is going to go through that. But we need the representation. We need to continue to be on that technical committee. And we have used, Glorieta Geoscience to be our representation there because they understand the science. They understand how the groundwater ties, but having the groundwater controlled right now by New Mexico, the surface water by Arizona, and the judge not sure, and the tribes are trying to tie the two together. We kind of have two masters that we're answering to, and it's kind of confusing at times when we work with the state engineer for our groundwater stuff, and then we go over to the Arizona and they said, oh no, that is part of the decree. And so we need the judge to clarify that. But we're not really wanting to be the test case of that. But we're just trying to keep abreast of it without really having our head too far out of the foxhole at this point. So we get kind of a reading of the judge.
Okay, any questions? All right, I see Mr. Madrid Rio Chama.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. As several of the other parties in the Aragon adjudication have indicated, is that we are close to a final decree, but the work that needs to be done now is going to be tremendous because for my part, I need to sell this to my commissioners, and then in turn, we need to be able to sell it to their parciantes. So there's going to be a lot of footwork involved, a lot of in-person meetings, hybrid meetings, so forth. And it's going to require our professional team to continue to be active in explaining this adjudication process to the layperson, the parciante. And so we're grateful for all the monies that we received thus far and what's been recommended. You know, I agree with Antonio Manzanares. We like the higher amount, of course, but right now we're in arrears with our professional team, and because last year's money just wasn't enough, and so I'm hopeful that the committee will give consideration to the higher amount that was recommended by ISC. And then lastly, and this is off topic here, but Joanne has been so awesome in this whole process. Her expertise and her guidance are just, I don't know what to say. She's awesome. And I heard that she's retiring, and that's really sad, but she's awesome. That's all I can say. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? All right, I see Judy Torres for Taos Valley has signed up.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, everybody, for all your support for our adjudication and our settlement. Since 2012, when the settlement was signed, we found that there's been a real big increase in price for the material for implementing our mutual benefit projects. So our attorney has been engaged in working with, I guess, the OSC, Taos Pueblo the town of Taos just to see how we're going to cover these costs that have increased so much over the years. And so our attorney has been really involved in that. We're also in the middle of water sharing and trying to get gauges put into two of our streams to be able to share the water properly as it is stated in our settlement agreement with Taos Pueblo. And in this last couple of years, we've been working on something that was in the settlement agreement on footprints, and we're working with the OSC to see how we can implement this so our valley doesn't lose water rights, and we're able just to follow the settlement agreement on how we could use these water rights. So we have our hydrologist and our attorney working on this, and we will also be trying to hire an expert that will that'll help us identify these footprints and work with the OSC once they've approved all of this. We could use a little increase, but we are very grateful for all the money that you have given us in the past. Thank you.
All right, any questions for Judy and Taos? I just want to make a note that I want to thank Taos because last fall when we had our this spring, I guess, when we had our supplemental meeting, Taos willingly relinquished 50,000 so that we could share it with other acequias that were in immediate need. And so hopefully through this discussion today, we can replace most of that, or at least some at least replace that. So any other comments or questions for Taos? All right, anybody else signing up or wishing to speak? Okay, moving on to the next is the discussion and distribution of the funds by the committee. I think this year we've got probably one of the most challenging years we've ever had in distributing the funds. We had requests for $1.449 $1.449,255. We have funds available for distribution of $792,656. So it gets a little bit tight in these discussions. So I will open the floor to the committee for any discussion. I do want to recognize and think have the committee think about the Taos Valley $50,000 that we did take during the last meeting, and just put that on the table for discussion as well.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move the ISC recommendations as submitted, and we can deal with the Taos separately.
Okay, any discussion or comments?
I see.
What's that, Ralph?
I'm gonna go back with the Rio Gainas and see where we're at with that, and I want to put to everyone. I'm not sure with being that they like the Rio applied for 160. I don't know where a 180 came out for this meeting. So that's above what they even requested. So I just wanted to make sure we're being equitable and real decision. Of course, what cannot help the.
Ralph, we're having a hard time. I don't know if you're at a Ralph doesn't have his video on. If there's a place you can move where you can get better.
Can you hear me better now?
You're in and out. Go ahead. Let's try it again.
I just want to continue the Rio Gainas discussion, and also I appreciate Rio Chamas 180, but I just wanted to be equitable. They did request 160, so I don't know where we go above what they requested. I know they they said they have a lot of things going on there in the rears, but a lot of us, a lot of these associations need a lot more than what we're going to give.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I agree on the Rio Chama. The request was 160 and the ISC was 180. I would lean more towards the 160 than I would the 180. The ISC on the Taos Valley is 10,000 and the other two recommended 50,000, and that was basically to pay back the 50,000 we had taken from them earlier. So I've got a little heartburn with that as well. And then we do need to discuss the Gallinas, the historical billing that didn't happen, or that's on the table anyway.
Yeah, and I'm just not sure how it falls in line and where that historical building and that all falls into place. I don't know if that is left for more deep diving or getting into the that. But I'm not sure how we know that.
Yeah, so I think some of the question with Gallinas and I don't know, I'll lean on Joanne and then also on Michelle, a question for them. The billing that was you mentioned some of it was in question whether it was applicable to the adjudication, or was there some question about some of it being for other things outside of the adjudication process? So Michelle, do you want to comment on that?
I guess I really don't have all the details. I'm sorry, I was only, let me put my headset on. I was not as involved during those years. Mr. Curtis Solohub, who passed away actually during that time period, was the president. But I think it was just a question of whether or not it was for the adjudication because of the conflict with some of the NMDA guidelines.
Okay. Okay, Joanne, do you have any comments on that as well?
I do not.
Okay. Mark, do you know why the ISC recommended 180 over 160, the request for Rio Chama?
I do not. I apologize.
Okay. There wasn't a second to Mark's motion. Is there any other, right? Somebody put a chat in. What was the chat? Oh, that was Julie's. Okay, we're good. Any other thought, some other thoughts or discussion by the committee on any concerns or heartburn over any of the recommendations of any of the three? I guess I'll put that on the table. Was there any of the three recommendations that you had other things you had heartburn with?
I think we're pretty much in line with NMDA, other than we're off a little bit on the sunset and house. I recognize the fact that we did relinquish funds, and we put that back to make sure that they at least had something back. But the last one is up in the air, was the Gallina, so I'm not sure what to do with that one. But I think we're pretty close. We're at 750. What's the commission at 761? I can't see it.
Yeah, 761, and the NMDA is at 755 total.
Wow.
The ones that are the most different are Jemez. The Acequia Commission was 10,000 below ISC and NMDA. Norteña's, the Rio Riba, we were at 130. The ISC was at 145, and Commission was at 120. Then we've talked about Chama. Quemado, there's a $5,000 difference. El Rito, there's a $5,000 difference. Taos Valley, there was a $40,000 difference between ISC and then NMDA and the Acequia Commission. And then Gainas, the 30,000. If the contingency left on the table would be 31,000 from Acequia Commission to 37,656 with NMDA. With Gainas, I guess my recommendation on Gainas might be, I might be leaning more towards, let's take a deeper dive into what those bills were about, because there seems to be the folks with the historical knowledge have passed or maybe no longer active with the association. And so it's going to take a little bit of work, I think, to figure out what was what with those. I am sensitive to the discussion that Mr. Ralph brought up about the guidelines at the time were based on a premise that was different than it is today. And so there was a lot of discussion, I remember back in the day, about from the city of Las Vegas and others, and threats of lawsuits and all kinds of things. So I throw that out there for discussion as well.
Michelle, do you have your hand up from past, or is it up now?
I do. No, I've up and down, sorry. I don't have a good organization of the records, but I do have a complete set of records. So if you want to put something aside for now so that we can look at it, I know that Mr. Romero did submit some invoices with our application, and I don't have that in front of me, but I do have Judge Sanchez's records as well as Mr. Solahub's records. So if we need to do some research, I can be an assistant with that.
Okay. And then the other question for the committee is do we still want to have a contingency for later in the year in case one of these moves faster than the others like we've done in the past, or do we want to just expend all of the resources now? That's always on the table as well. So comments from Ralph or Mark on any of that, or thoughts?
Contingency is always nice to have, but it's, because people don't know where they're at, where they're going. I don't know if you wanted if you want to kind of open that up to like a short, very short, because we don't want to drag this on too long, just to hear from a couple from the comments from the people out there to see how contingency works for them or not.
Yeah, no, I don't mind if there's comments from the Acequias on the usefulness of the contingency. We've had some need for that in the past. And then other.
I'm in full support of having a contingency for that very reason, because every year is different and there's everything, sometimes we take unexpected turns. And it's a nice little cushion to fall back on when we're in need, and we've benefited from it in the past. And so at least from my point of view, our CA supports having a contingency.
Okay.
So does Acequias Norteñas, exactly for the same reason that Daryl just spoke about. We used it and we're still in arrears. Thank you.
Right. Okay. I think here's what I'm going to propose something just for discussion purposes. I would propose looking at the NMAC recommendation, with the exception of Sunset, adding $4,000 to the Sunset. So making theirs total of 5,000. With the additional comment about holding Gainas is in kind of in suspension until we resolve some of the billing issues and some of the questions around some of the billing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does, and that's kind of like what I was thinking along those lines.
That would leave us a contingency of about 27,656. And potentially, what's that?
Yeah, that also be dependent on what falls in line, if Gainas would
With the
take that
Gainas.
entire amount or not. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any comment, Mark? Do you have any comments about that?
I would second that if it's a motion.
I'll make that into a motion and then for discussion, and Mark seconded. Ralph, any comments, any further comments?
No, I'm good.
Okay. With that, I'll call for a vote. Joanne, will you take a vote? So Joanne, the recommendation would be the Acequia Commission recommendation, with the exception of item number 7, would be moved to $5,000. And then we would hold the Gainas allocation pending further review of the billing and some of the issues around that. So they would have the 30,000 allocated, but it would be held until we resolve the billing issues. And I want to make sure the committee is agreeable with what I just said. If that it's everybody's understanding. Okay. All right, Joanne, will you call the roll?
Jeff Woody,
Yes.
Ralph Hill,
Yes.
Mark Sanchez.
Yes.
All right, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is any further public comment?
Yes.
Antonio.
Secretary, so what amount, are you gonna read the amounts after we finish here?
Yeah,
What everybody has to win more?
So I can do that, and Joanne, watch me to make sure I do this right. Fort Sumner, 10,000. La Acequia de la Sierra, 10,000. Jemez, 130. Rio Riba, 120. Rio Chama, 160. Community, the San Jose, 90. Sunset Ditch, 5,000. Rio Quemado, 120. El Rito, 20. Taos Valley, 50. Rio Vallecitos, 20. And Gainas has 30,000 allocated pending the review of their billings. That will leave a contingency fund of around 27,656 for use later down the road.
Thank you.
Other public comments?
Hi, this is Don Bustos. I have a comment, and
Yes.
I'm kind of new to the process. I've only been involved about 4 or 5 years. And my first concern is listening to these other folks that have been at it for 20, 30 years, and their acequias, after they get to a final settlement and start to work towards a final decree, they're all in arrears. So I'd hate to lead down our association, the Santa Cruz Association, kind of blindly saying, oh, at the end, everything will be good, when we might end up owing a bucket full of money. So I just wanted to share that kind of concern. You know, I mean, there has to be more resources, as Mr. Martinez said, and all the members. I think there has to be more resources just to be on an equitable level or a level playing field with the pueblos and the feds. I don't want to go into debt. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. You know, so as these, I'll just give a comment from my own historical perspective of watching this over the years. For many years, as most of the folks know, there was only a few acequias that were moving at a high level of priority because of the resources of the state or resources of the courts or whatever. The last 2 years, I have seen a tremendous movement in the of these cases moving forward, and in approaching settlement and going through the Congress and getting the president's signature, and then that's not even the end of it. Then it comes into the implementation. I think it is time for the acequias to, and I would be happy to help support from our department's perspective discussions with the legislature about upping these funds in the next session. Because of the higher level of activity, I think it's time to start looking at you know, and historically we've had high balances in some of these associations because things weren't moving forward. That's not the case anymore. The balances are very nominal, and when you think about the current balance in all of the Acequias moving forward is less than $200,000. I mean, I've sat in this committee and chaired this committee for years now, and we've had years where the balances were over 500,000 or close to $1 million. That's not the case anymore. So there may be some justification for the Acequias in discussing with their own legislators further appropriation enhancements. Just a comment.
You know, that's part of what I do every year during every legislative session is I hound our legislators to fully fund the ACDF. You know, we've been asking for $1 million every year, and you know, I think last year at the distribution meeting, I mentioned to you that I had a personal commitment from the governor to keep it at 1 million, and then that fell flat. So I'm not giving up, you know.
Okay, yeah, no, I think the time is ripe. Other comments?
Chairman, yeah, we're already, myself, Robert Apoca, we're having those discussions currently with Chairman Small, so putting all that on his radar to up this fund.
Okay, very good. Any other comments? Joanne, would you like to say anything?
I would like to say it's been a pleasure working with you all. This will be my last meeting. As Daryl mentioned, I am retiring November 1st. So thank you, everybody. Been a pleasure.
So in other words, we have to have this contingency meeting by October 31st.
Well, she's going to leave a huge pair of shoes to fill in. That's for sure.
You know, I'm not looking forward to life without Joanne. I can tell you, we had a discussion yesterday, and I told her I wasn't going to sign her retirement papers, and if I did, it was under the contingency that she came back and ran this program for us just part-time. But she's not agreeing to any of that. So Joanne, thank you. I want to thank you for all the good work you've done for the Acequia Community Ditch Fund. You know, I can tell you we're going to miss you from the department, but I know that all the Acequias are going to miss you as well. All right. So, and yeah, and congratulations to Joanne for reaching that goal of life, retirement. So, all right, with that, any other comments? If not, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Been moved by Mark, second by Ralph, and we'll vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Aye.